Yeah, so he came out of what seemingly seems to be nowhere. If you're not involved in the political atmosphere and you don't follow politics, he just kind of popped out of nowhere. I will say he does have a good social media presence, and I think that's what was really catapulting him into the forefront. I think kind of similar to what AOC did when she was a thing. Social media presence, videos and things like that, I think really made a difference. It connects with obviously the younger generation and just his way of speaking. I think it's, matter of fact, to the point. There's no fluff or anything like that. He says what the people are thinking. He says what the people want to hear. And I think that's made a difference. I know when we were talking prior to recording, you said that governor endorsed him as well. So I think that's
Yep.
I didn't realize that. I didn't know that myself, but I think that's a huge win for him. And I think with him being involved on the Democratic Party side, it just shows a lot of the cracks that are within the Democratic community. They just, they can't stand the fact that he's so popular and that he's at the front. They're just literally fighting among themselves to kind of get rid of him, to slow down his momentum.
I don't know if it really matters who endorses Mamdani at this point. Um, his entire base is very similar to like the Bernie Sanders era, where it's all about the grassroots roots movement. His entire so I mean I don't know personally I don't think Hochul endorsing him matters. I don't think Hakeem Jeffries,
Well,
if
no,
he
I,
ever
I,
endorses him,
I, I
matters.
don't
I
think
think
her endorsing him matters to him. I think it's more of a statement that she is going against most of the other Democrats and actually
yeah,
endorsing him. I think that's the main thing.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. I just think like we're in a time where in like 30 years it's going to be written in the history books that the parties are going to have a major platform change similar to like the party switch of the past, where we're going to look back and say, yeah, these parties are not what they came to be, what they were in 2016. I think we're seeing a slow, I mean, I guess not slow depending on on like how you're looking at it, but like realistically within the past 10 years, the Republicans have essentially become very, I don't want to say, yeah, we can call them the Republicans. The Republicans have become very um populist in nature, which actually was essentially the Democrat position prior to like the corporatism that took over during the Bill Clinton era. Um, and the Democrats continue to be this weird corporate neoliberal abomination where like their base doesn't want it, but they just keep saying you guys don't know enough to decide what we do here. So like just eat what we give you. And I think because and the reason why I said it is because there's a clear contrast between the leadership of the Democratic Party and what the people are actually asking for. This is literally, and listen, I was not like a huge Bernie guy in 2016. I liked him in the of the slate of possible politicians, but I was never like really like a Bernie bro. But if the general population has been asking for a Bernie like figure for essentially a decade, if not more, right? If not more, they've been asking for because Obama essentially was supposed to be that kind of figure, and I guess he tried to be, depending on how you looked at it, but he became more neoliberal than I think most people would have liked. Regardless, if since 2000, so if that's the case, then we could say since 2008, which means it really started during the Bush era, which means it started since the 2000s, this turn of the millennial, turn of the century. Essentially, for the past 25 years, next year in the midterms will be 26 years, the Democratic base has been asking for a more progressive populist candidate, and every single time, other than Obama, which came out as more of a populist, at least a moderate populist, they have said no. And every single time they ask, why do we not get elected? And every single time people say, well, you didn't give us who we wanted. And every single time they say, you don't know who you want, take this. And then every single time they lose again. It's going to
I mean,
be
they're getting them on grassroots levels. That's what AFC was, but she ended up
right,
like
but even
shifting
but
anyway.
no, well, listen, like I think we can talk about the issues of what happens when you get elected and how you become more moderate. I think being more moderate is actually a good thing. The problem is that the other side doesn't tend to become more moderate, so that's why it just seems.
I mean, I
I mean,
disagree
we can
that
talk about the
Are you
that's a
philosophical.
good
becoming
thing, but
more moderate, or are you becoming more
no,
controlled once the once APAC and everybody else gets involved?
I
No,
mean, I don't know if that's the point you're trying to make right now, but I strongly disagree. We've
I'm
talked
talking
about
about
this.
moderate in
This
terms of
idea of
in terms of like in the political realm. In my opinion, you have to negotiate. Like
yeah, but you negotiate with somebody who's willing to negotiate. The
right. That's
problem
my
is
point.
they're
But
negotiating with people who are not willing to negotiate, and they're like, okay, fine, I'll just do whatever you want anyway, and that's what happens in the end. This is why the
well, that's
left,
I don't want to talk. I don't want to get
yeah,
down
I
that
know,
rabbit hole
but I'm
because
just saying
I'm not disagreeing
my
with
point
you.
is there's a
My
lot of
point is that being
grassroots.
moderate is not bad. It's the problem is that the current political ecosystem that we're in is makes it look bad. But realistically, you do
Right.
need to be moderate. Both sides need to be moderate. Anyway, whatever. I'm talking about a democratic system.
Yeah, I was just making a point that there is a lot of wins on the grassroots level on that
Right,
particular
but
issue,
then
but
it
it doesn't
never
translate. Yeah,
translate into the federal level because
yeah,
they don't want that to be the case. And
right,
again, the
exactly.
reason why they allowed Obama to be it was because at that point, if you didn't hold on to that fire, they would have lost with Hillary again. Like
Right.
it would have been Romney. We'd have Romney, and maybe that would have been a better history for for America.
Romney
But
actually implemented progressive policies in Maine,
I mean, he's the one who came up with
Massachusetts, or
Obamacare, right?
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, if it came from a Republican, maybe we would have a single, at least some sort of like a national Medicaid
Nah,
system.
he got outcasted in the end anyway. He probably wasn't that popular.
I mean, he was popular. It's just that when the Republicans became Republic as in terms of like the grassroots Republicans became more populist, Romney was not about that.
You're right.
Like he
Yeah,
was still very part of the neocon
yeah,
realm.
yeah.
So he didn't agree with like, for instance, like what Trump is doing with like the golden share in U.S. Steel and Nippon with getting a 10% stake in Intel. Those are he's a socialist. Like it's just funny that Democrats don't call him out on that because if they call him out on that, then people will say, oh, maybe socialism is bad because Trump is not is like a negative as a negative albatross upon the necks of liberals. So if they start to say, "Oh, well, Trump's a socialist," then suddenly the progressives in their ranks may not look as good. And maybe who knows? Maybe
I don't.
neoliberals will
I feel
eventually
like
get
that
to that
wouldn't.
point.
It wouldn't even
Maybe
stick though,
neoliberals will
because
get to that point where they start to call
nah,
them socialists
I feel
to
like it wouldn't
discredit
even stick
their
because
side of
Trump
the
would.
base.
It wouldn't even stick though, because Trump would just be like, "No, there." His base would be like, "He said no," and I believe.
Yeah,
So
but it's not.
that's
I mean, at a certain point, you're not talking to his base, right? Like realistically, they're talking
yeah,
to the 75% that don't
yeah, yeah.
hang on every word. So like it's really like it's just funny to me that they don't it shows like how like growing up I always thought that generally people had like were creative and imaginative and were able to like fight back on certain things. But it looks like whoever the Democratic leadership now is very like stuck in once Trump leaves, we'll go back to how it was. And I don't think they realize like nobody wants to go even though it was more stable than it is now, nobody wants to go back to that.
Yeah,
Well,
Like nobody
this is
wants
this is what
it's a little
Mamdami
bit
is
too
though.
late. Like you've gone too far at this point to go back anyway. I think I
but
don't
that's
think
I'm telling you that's how they I believe that's how they see it. I say that's how what I believe because that's what I hear
I know I agree with that very much. I think
that's
this is
what I hear
exactly
when
what
I'm yeah.
so.
this
You're
is
saying
exactly
that
what
they're just
Mamdani is.
waiting it out for him to kind of be done,
That's
and
that's what I think.
This
Yeah.
is what they did the
they'll
first
fix
time
I
around.
think
They were
whatever.
just like,
I
just
think
he,
Schumer, Jeffries, Pelosi are all waiting for
yeah.
2026 to say, "Oh, the Democrats will come in and they'll probably win majority of the seats. They'll probably take back the House. They probably won't take the Senate, but they'll probably do enough where it's like a one vote margin. So they stop Trump in terms of like what he wants to do legally, but he's gonna continue doing what he wants to do
Right,
illegally. Like
right.
he's not even within the bounds of legality at this point,
I
and
mean,
he's taking the approach of well sue me, and then he'll like listen to the courts, but it will be 6 months post fact, and it doesn't matter at that point because the damage has been done. So
right.
he's just running so fast they can't keep up. And like they're still in the mindset of like, oh, we can outlast him. yes, the country can outlast him, but you guys are not going to outlast him.
Right.
You as in like Pelosi and Schumer and Jeffries, like they like Jeffries not endorsing Mamdani, even though his constituency is actually in New York City, and they actually overwhelmingly voted for Mamdani. If he
Right.
doesn't endorse Mamdani, I wouldn't be surprised if Jeffrey loses, because especially if Mamdani comes in and does a good job, because it shows how, like, I mean, he's basically a scarecrow. He's standing there hoping that nobody finds out that he has nothing of substance. Like
Yeah, I mean,
that's
this is the
literally what it
entirety
is.
of the Democratic Party. This is, I mean, the
Yeah,
leadership
but
of the
like I can
Democratic.
give like sorry,
But
go ahead.
my point is too, is even to your point about how they're just hoping to outlast Trump or wait out Trump and everything will go back. This is what they did the first time around, though. This was the first term of Trump was, let's just weather this term. It was a fluke. He'll never become president again. We just need to make sure that he doesn't become, and he's done. And the moment he lost, they thought they basically put the nail in the coffin and he was done for. And then 4 years later, he's back again. I don't think anybody expected. I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't say nobody, but I think most people did not expect Trump to actually make a comeback. People thought it was a one-time thing and that's it, and he's done. Everybody was relieved. I think one of the biggest problems is everybody was so relieved that Trump was gone. They didn't really take the problem of Biden being president very seriously. And people just desperately voted for Biden just to get rid of Trump. But the problem is, I think Mamdani is a reaction to that, to the fact that we constantly keep settling for less. And I think people in New York, at least, saw an opportunity with Mamdani, and that he's very grassroots, obviously, and he's and the pro-Palestine thing was a big thing. So people were debating, is it because did being pro-Palestinian help or whatever? And again, I don't know if you can debate how pro-Palestinian he is or whether it's all fake or not. That's a whole other conversation. But he's certainly not this open Zionist that Cuomo and Eric Adams are. And so when he after he won the primaries, there was a poll that came out that said that overwhelmingly that was one of the biggest issues that helped people decide whether to vote for him down here. And that was the fact that he was pro-Palestinian. I forget the exact percentage. It was 60 something percent of the base said like that it was because of his pro-Palestinian stance that also helped.
Yeah,
So
but
I mean, I'm just saying, like, this is examples of somebody who's going completely against the grain of the establishment, not necessarily the general public, but he's going against the grain of the establishment, and people want that, so they're reacting to it. This is what they did with Bernie. This is what they did with AOC. There's other examples. So they didn't know people. We were saying, oh, it's not bad to have a moderate in an ideal sense, but people are no longer going to settle for the moderate because they've seen that the moderate doesn't actually do it. The moderate just goes right, and they just keep shifting right. And so people are going to go for the extreme. Is it ideal to have to go to the extreme to get something done? No, obviously, in an
Mamdani's a
ideal,
moderate though. Like I'm not when I say
he's a
moderate,
moderate in the sense
I don't mean like I don't mean him in like
he's
a
moderate.
moderate
He's
milk
moderate
toast
maybe
guy.
in
I'm talking about like a moderate in terms of you can't go straight to labor has means of production. Like that's like
he's not
nobody
moderate by
really
establishment.
understands that. Like that doesn't
Yeah,
make any sense.
he's not moderate by establishment standards. The fact that he even said free buses
I
and
know.
everybody lost their minds in terms
What
on the establishment
that's what I
is
want to
like
talk about because like
is like this is not a big, this is not like a massive like
well that's what I want to talk about
overhaul.
because
This is just basic stuff.
his ideas are not radical.
Right, that's my
That's
point.
the issue is that his ideas are not radical, but they
But
paint
even
him as
people on the
radical
left will tell
because
you that
he
their ideas are not radical. Like people who are on the left who are leftists who believe who you would consider in the American in the American political spectrum very far left. A lot, yes, there are obviously extreme leftist views, but for the most part, most people who are on the left are not actually. They'll tell you themselves this is not a radical view. It's not radical to say that healthcare should be affordable, maybe not necessarily free, but that it should be affordable. That education should be affordable. That public transit should be accessible. Like these
no,
are
but those things
basic
are not
things.
the issue. The issue is how to get there. Everyone agrees to those things. The
But
question is how do you get there?
even how to get there, this it's not
But how to
necessarily
get there
as
is the radical is where it gets radical.
it's
Like
radical because of how far wrong we've gone in another direction, not because in and of itself a radical idea. It's not
no, no,
a lot of most developed societies in the world have these kinds of perks. Like this is not it's not unusual, right? So
yeah,
like
I'm not disagreeing with
it's
that
not
point.
unusual to have accessible healthcare and accessible education. It's only unusual in the United States.
But they also have their own issues though. So like I don't want to talk about other parts of the world
No,
because
no,
they
that's
also
not
have their own
necessarily true
issues.
either,
So
though. It's not necessarily true though that like, oh, if you get this, you forgo that. That's not actually not true. We in the U.S. we keep this is a strawman argument constantly. Oh well, you know, if you get this, then you lose that. You don't. Well, in the U.S., we're not getting that, and we've lost that anyway. Like so, what like people say, oh, you know, you get free healthcare in Canada, but you have to wait forever for an appointment. So the same thing in the U.S. You wait for appointments all the time. Every time you have a surgery, you get scheduled out months out, right? Unless it's something urgent that needs to be done right on the spot, it doesn't get scheduled right away. For appointments, basic doctor's appointments, people are waiting months for doctor's appointments. You know, basic things. So it's not true that, oh, because you pay for healthcare in the US, you get better healthcare or you get faster healthcare. It's not true. And even in
Well, it's not.
Canada,
Well, I
they'll say
mean,
if it's
it's
an urgent thing, you get the urgent care right away. If it's not urgent, then it gets pushed out. So yeah, okay, fine. It's
well,
not urgent. It's not
it's
urgent.
like in business, right? You can get cheap, you can get good,
Yeah.
or you can
But
get
it's not.
fast.
It's that's
You
not.
can't
But
get
it's
all
not.
three at the
It's
same
not.
time. You can get two,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
But again, it's I'm just saying in general. Even education, for example, education is largely accessible in most developed countries, right? Nobody says that these places have bad education. Nobody says, oh, if you get educated in England, you have bad education, or if you get educated in Canada. There have also very prominent, prestigious universities. It's not like if you live in America, you get to go to Harvard. How many students are at Harvard every year? How many students do they accept every year? How many students does Princeton accept every year? Princeton
But
only
you talk
has
about higher education. The education problem is not a higher education problem. The education problem is a lower education problem.
even no, it's both. I mean, this
It's
is the
starting.
question is both.
It's starting. It's starting.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
early development,
Okay, but that's what
not
I mean, it's
higher
at all
education.
levels. The problem of education is at all levels. University education is also an issue. That
It's
student
an
loans
issue,
is an
but
issue.
it's not the issue.
Oh yeah, I agree,
The
but
issue is early childhood education
even that,
and between that and high school. That's the issue.
right, right. So
I don't
my
think
point is,
higher education still is. I don't want to say like the. I mean, it probably is the. I don't want to say the best, but it's at the very least one of the best in the world.
that's fine. But is it
But
so much so that I like if I'm screwed basically if I get an
no,
education
I'm
in
not
another
saying that.
that's
Of
my
course not.
point. So they act like basically if you don't pay $50,000 a semester for this
Well,
education,
those are
you're gonna
other
have to
issues.
go and study in Europe, and you know
But the thing that
Europe.
I wanted to talk about from Mamdani, and I think I would like to hear what you guys say. I think like the biggest piece of I think personally, I think the biggest piece of why they push back on him is because he's brown. That's my
Of
personal
course,
opinion
yeah. There's a
because
racial element, big time,
I don't want to make it seem
huge.
like
It's brown
a
and he's Muslim.
race issue only, but like realistically, if it was a white guy talking about these ideals, maybe he wouldn't even be there. To be honest, it's kind of a conflating thing. I think the grassroots wouldn't have probably put him there in terms of like getting him to into a position of being the Democratic nominee, but the establishment probably would have been more amenable if he was white. So
Well, you don't have to look that
it's
far. You
kind of
just
like
look
a
at
catch-22 there because I don't think if he was
right.
white he would have gotten there, but I think he would have been um, more amenable to like the establishment. Regardless, I think the other piece of it is that I want to talk about is the grocery stores. How he's going to provide for, or at least his idea is to provide for government subsidized grocery stores in each of the boroughs. So I think the piece that gets overlooked here is that a lot of times you'll hear critics say that the government doesn't play well in low margin areas. They're going to lose money, so on and so forth. Obviously, that's not the point. The point isn't for the government to make money. The point is to subsidize these groceries in areas that don't have the means to begin with, and then to drive the prices down for the for profit institutions. That's the entire point, right? So I just want to make sure that like we talk about that because generally in the current media outlets and the current media environment, a lot of times people are talking about the grocery stores as if it's a bad idea because government can't run for profit institutions. And the point that I want to say is this isn't for profit. This is to literally very similar to having a government subsidized healthcare program is to lower the cost across the board so it becomes more affordable so that then he can say we are having a more affordable city because now that you can go to a government subsidized grocery store that you can buy whatever a gallon of milk for 250, everybody now has to meet that 250 threshold, right? Or people are going to be willing to stand in line for that $2.50 gallon of milk rather than going to Whole Foods for the $7 gallon of milk that they would get otherwise. So I think that's a piece that I want to also make sure that we touch upon.
But and by the way, this idea that that subsidized grocery store stifles competition, I don't think necessarily that I don't believe that that's necessarily true. If you are a private grocery store, and you're open in a certain area that people can afford it, people will buy it. People also who have money prefer quality, prefer accessibility. So if you're a certain type of grocery store that's closer to certain neighborhoods where people have the money for it, and the subsidized grocery store is not nearby, they're not going to go necessarily to the subsidized grocery store. If they can afford your groceries, they're going to get it for ease of access, for a certain quality. Because let's be real, if it's a subsidized grocery store, it's probably not going to offer the same quality that the higher brands or whatever that other grocery stores offer. But the other thing is that I think that that's kind of the whole crux of every American debate is subsidized versus privatization. And when both parties are in the pockets of private companies, it's always going to be the issue of trying to maintain the interests of private companies over the interests of the general public. It's not going to be so much so that, we're the government and our job is to provide. No, this in the American government, their job has become, because of who pays them, it's become to look maintain the interest of private companies that pay them. That's really what it boils down to, and this is why they've stifled universal health care development and free education and all that, because, and we see, like, even prisons now are privatized, right? The government won't even run its own prisons. And so when you privatize these kinds of things, it incentivizes, certain types of policies and behavior. So I don't think that the government is, when Mamdani talks about having subsidized grocery stores, it's going to have the same conclusion as every other conversation. That's socialism. You're ruining the free market economy. You're doing this. You're doing that. That's what it's going to boil down to. The question is whether Mamdani can push through and A, win the election, and B, enact that as a policy and in actuality. The reality is we need to stop having this negotiation, and it just needs to be done against the will of these people who are in the pockets of private companies.
Yeah, look,
There's no need to convince, is what I'm saying. Once you enact it as a policy and you see it working on the ground, people will follow through with it, and they'll say,
yeah,
"Oh, look, it's working."
yeah, I think when you label the program as a socialist program, I think that's where it gets that stigma, right? Where everybody's like, well, no, we're a capitalistic country. That's what we believe in. What's this socialism stuff, right?
Right.
And I think it's what Ismail said. I think the more importantly, it's does he have a chance to win? And that's one. And two, if he does win, is he going to have the capacity to push legislation like that through and have it pass? Look, at the end of the day, is it going to be beneficial for the people who it's supposed to be beneficial for? Yeah, I think so. And I also agree with what Ismail said, is that in terms of the private entities like the Whole Foods and stuff out there, they're not necessarily going to, decrease or lower their prices because you can get the gallon of milk for 250 at the government subsidized supermarket. They're still gonna they're still gonna retain their customer basis, right? It's like what Ismail said. The ease and convenience is there. The options, like so many options are there. That demographic is gonna continue to go to Whole Foods.
I don't know, man. I
What's
don't know if I
that?
agree with that.
I mean,
Oh, you don't you don't
I
think
know
look,
a lot of
there isn't
people in my
Whole
job.
Foods
If
in.
they heard they can get milk for a third of the price, you're telling me they wouldn't go get milk for a third of the price?
right? So now are we
But
talking about
you're
just
opening
like
in
item by
neighborhoods.
item, or generally speaking,
No,
the
item by
general?
item. That's fine. Sure, you can't get your package of Medjool dates from the government subsidized grocery store for like $3. Fine,
Right,
you have to
right.
go to Whole Foods for that. But for everyday items, eggs, milk, bread, if you can get that for a third of the price in New York, that's an extra 6-pack that you can
Yeah,
buy.
but there's
I
an
mean,
entire
that's
demographic that
realistically
doesn't.
what
I
they're
mean,
Uh,
thinking.
but
Ahmed,
Ahmed,
I
there's
didn't know
eggs.
this
There
side
are people
about you,
who
man. That's
no
crazy.
no no no. But
I'm just
like,
trying to
no,
like
no. But this
bring
is
it to
but
real
there's
real
proof. There's proof of
thing
this
though, because
already.
that's how they're gonna think about it. I can go
Ahmed,
out
there's
now.
proof of
I
this.
can
There's
go
proof
buy
of
something.
this
That's the
already.
point, because it stimulates other purchases. If you now have $5 extra in your pocket times whatever 3 times, so you have $15. That's a burrito bowl. That's a Chick-fil-A
No,
sandwich.
but
Suddenly you're
Ahmed,
buying more. You
there's
bought
proof of
milk
this
and you
exists.
bought this. Otherwise, you would have just bought milk.
Proof of this exists already, Ahmed.
That's what encourages
Okay.
purchasing.
Yes, But proof of this exists already. If I in my neighborhood, if I go to Lidl, for example, the eggs will be in fact almost a third of the price of eggs in Whole Foods. That doesn't stop people
No,
from
it's
going to
not a
Whole.
third.
Yes, it is,
I
dude.
go.
It's
It's not a
no,
third. I
it
go,
is,
dude.
it is, dude. You go to Lidl, and if you go to ShopRite, which is not as even expensive as Whole Foods, it's already $2-3 more for eggs.
But
So
that's
that
not the
could,
same thing. We're comparing.
but
Okay,
you're saying
first
if
off,
the option exists to be a
Lidl and
third of the
Aldi's
price.
are notoriously known for not having the best quality of things.
But
That so
that's exactly my
so
point, Ahmed. If you're offering eggs for a third of the price, it's not going to be the same quality as what's already sold in Whole Foods or elsewhere. Even if the government is subsidizing, they're going to subsidize the cheapest available version. So it's going to be the same of what already exists. The second thing is most of
it's
these
not going to be
prices
the
are
same.
going to be it is because
I'm telling you, it's not going to be the same.
the other thing is if the subsidized if you have subsidized stores, where are they going to open? They're going to open in underserved neighborhoods.
Yeah,
The people who are buying Whole Foods and buying, you know, whatever other high-end grocery stores, they're already living in another neighborhood and they make
Yeah,
a certain amount of money and they're going
they're
to keep
not
going to
driving to
those
the
places.
ghetto.
They're not going to go down to whatever other neighborhood just to get a few dollars lower on eggs. If they can afford, you know, $6,000 a month for rent on a two-bedroom or one bedroom or whatever it is in New York, they can afford to pay a little bit extra for
no,
eggs,
because they're
right? So
forced to pay $6,000. It's not that they
I'm
want to pay
saying
$6,000.
whatever the wealthy area of Manhattan is, whatever, or New York. I'm
But
saying
we're talking about you're
whoever's
talking about
paying,
1% of
whoever's
the
living
population.
in.
I'm talking about the majority of people in New York who are living essentially paycheck to paycheck, even making six figures, even making at least $150,000, are still living paycheck to paycheck because the rental prices are so exorbitant. They don't
Yes,
have enough
I agree.
money to do anything else.
I
If they
understand.
find out that they can go take the same subway trip, but two other stops to get to a grocery store that will give them the same items for a third of the price, they will
I
do
don't
that.
agree that
In
it's
my
the
opinion,
same. That's my thing. I don't agree it's the same items.
it's the same items.
If Mamdani can even get a subsidized grocery store passed, whoever agrees to be on board with that is gonna get the cheapest. The government, if it's gonna be subsidized by the government is gonna go and get the cheapest available thing to sell. The cheapest available eggs, cheapest quality milk, cheapest quality butter.
I'm
Everything's
not
gonna be
going to
the
speak about the
cheapest quality.
quality of the things until it's out.
But
Like
that's,
I
I
don't
mean,
know what they're going to
that's
do.
it's pretty
My point
obvious that's
is
what they're gonna do. So
my
I mean,
point is my point is there's a lot of things that the government can do, as we've seen with the current federal administration, that you wouldn't expect the government to do. If they take the liberty to do certain things, to negotiate on a wide scale for other various aspects, right? So if you give me this, well, again, this is just hypothetical. If you give me this gallon of milk for X price, we'll give you certain tax incentives, right? So suddenly you're getting it cheaper for great quality milk or whatever, great quality produce, because you're giving them other incentives across the board, because now you can do that because you're a city. That's the difference. You're talking about grocery stores that don't have the broad reach that government does. Government has broad reach for a reason, or not for a reason, but they can use that to leverage, which is what the federal administration is doing. They're leveraging, for instance, Jimmy Kimmel. We're not gonna give you we're gonna remove your license if you keep talking bad about Trump. They can't do that, but they've leveraged that now. So yes, if you were to extrapolate it, they probably would have lost that in court. But ABC didn't want to do that. Disney didn't want to deal with that, so they said, okay, let's suspend him. Now suddenly they're using their leverage to do certain things. Mamdani can do the same thing in the city of New York. He can say, "Give me the best milk, give me the best produce, and I will do X, Y, and Z."
I think
It
you're
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to
conflating.
be a stick. It can be a carrot. He can say, "We'll give you incentives. We'll do this." But my point is that he can leverage the government in a positive way. That's essentially what. That's essentially
right,
what.
that's
Uh,
fine. Yeah, I'm not
every
seeing what the issue is.
that's the point of everything that the government can do. Is
Right,
supposed
but
to
what's the
leverage
issue
their
then?
power.
But I think you may be conflating the power here with what power he would possess and what power the federal government would possess, right? I don't think Mamdani would have that kind of leverage to pull those kind of strings that you're saying.
So,
I think that's what it is.
okay, Whole Foods. If you don't give whatever, this is maybe a bad example. If you don't, I guess it wouldn't be Whole Foods specifically, but let's just say in a hypothetical world, they were buying it off of Whole Foods instead of going directly to a manufacturer or to like a farm. They buy directly from Whole Foods. Again, this is maybe a bad hypothetical, but let's just go with it. Go with me here. Okay, Whole Foods, give me your milk for $1 because I'm going to sell it for $2.50. No, we don't want to. Okay, fine. We're not going to give you police presence. We're not going to remove police presence across all your Whole Foods
I
places.
think
I mean,
so.
that's in his remit, though.
I get what
So
you're
so like
saying. I
suddenly
get what you're saying.
you're
But
saying he can't do that, but he can if he's will if again, I'm not saying I don't agree with this, but if this is the time that we're in, and he needs to do certain things to improve his standing, say, okay, you don't want to give that to me.
I
We're gonna remove police presence in on your corners. And I actually have
I totally get what you're saying, and I totally get where you're coming from. I think we're kind of going down this rabbit hole, but I think I just want to respond to your point is it's market cap, right? So now if Whole Foods, if you're using Whole Foods as an example, we'll just continue on that, right? If Whole Foods is being used as an example, and Mamdani says, "Well, I want your milk for $1, so I can sell it for 250 for the underprivileged." Whole Foods is going to say, "Well, you know what? Then that's fine. We're just going to remove all of our supermarkets from New York, because his reach is only within New York, right? Only within New York City." So I think
perfect. That's a great spot for the government subsidized place.
well, there you go. So I think I've
So it's a win-win.
solved your problem then. So
There you go.
that's what I meant by I don't think he
No
has
one's gonna
the
miss Whole Foods.
But
power.
that's the point, Sahil. So that they leave, he can take that spot, and then he has more reach to then go to the farmers or to the
He
other manufacturers and say, okay,
he
now we
needs to
have more
still
stores.
find a source that's gonna provide him with that stuff for $1, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think a private company it's gonna be beneficial for them to supply that for $1. You
I mean,
know,
I would have thought the same until I saw what's been happening over the past year. So a lot of private companies are doing things, in my opinion, that are not in the best interest of the long term viability, but they continue to do it. So if that's the trend, why not push it? Why not see what you can do? I mean, that's just my take on it.
I get
It
it.
doesn't make sense for them to continue to kowtow to what Trump is asking when they legally don't have to.
Right.
No, they don't. But because of whatever value they see in it in the short term, they're going to continue doing it. So why not have Mamdani try to push those same boundaries, pull the same strings,
Well, I
see what
think
happens?
at the federal level, I think it goes back to what you were saying that the Democrats did, right? They're just trying to buy their time and wait till he goes out and then do what they really want to do. But anyway, I think we've gone down this rabbit hole quite a bit. Maybe we can devote some more time further at that. And I think we're kind of going long as well. Anyway, I think you have to
Yeah,
go. But I think just to one quick question, get your thoughts, and then we'll wrap it up, inshallah. Is do you guys think that he legitimately has a chance to win? And what do you think
I
the
think
results are going
so.
to be?
I think so. I
I
think
think
he
he
has a
will.
legitimate. Yeah, I think he has a legitimate shot at winning. I just don't know if he's actually going to be effective. So we'll see.